It's time to start digging into this matchup between LSU and Florida on Saturday night. Two programs kind of feel like they're in different places, but I feel like we're going to learn a lot about both teams and both programs on Saturday night. And I think one of the matchups that is very much going to determine the outcome in this game is one that Florida absolutely dominated in last year's game in Gainesville. And it was not a spot that I expected Florida to dominate last year in Gainesville. If they do it on Saturday, I won't be stunned. It's Florida's defensive line against LSU's offensive line. This is going to sound like Groundhog Day a little bit with the Clemson matchup, but it is what it is. I don't change the players on the field. They are what they are. We talk about them. And Florida's got a couple of guys who potentially could be first-round picks on that defensive front, and we know that Clemson did as well, and we talked about it all of August, and it's now time to kind of talk about it again with this Florida team, and the injury report crystallized that a little bit further yesterday. Caleb Banks was not listed on Florida's injury report yesterday. Caleb Banks injured his foot in camp and has not been available for the first two games for Florida. He will be on Saturday. Well, who's Caleb Banks? I'll tell you who Caleb Banks is. He plays defensive tackle for Florida. He is 6'6". He is 330 pounds, and he is projected by many to be a first-round pick in this coming draft. LSU saw Caleb Banks last year in this game, and he was an absolute menace. He had a strip sack of Garrett Nussmeier. He had 3 pressures on the night. Emory Jones picked up a fumble at one point, and he knocked him down and got a fumble produced out of that play. He is a problem. And you look at where he's positioned on that Gator defense, and it's right between the center and the guard, and LSU's starting center is at least compromised on Saturday. Braelin Moore might play. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not Braelin Moore, but I'm pretty confident Braelin Moore is, if he plays on Saturday, going to be a little bit gimpy. I don't think you're going to leave the game on the first play, get checked out in the locker room, come back out and give it a whirl, and then get into a walking boot for the second half, and then just come back and be ready to rock the next day. Brian Kelly has been cautious in his press conference words about him. He has used questionable. He has used probable. He was on the injury report last night. Feels like there's confidence around LSU that he might be able to play. But I've told you this many times. I don't think this is an indictment of LSU. This is just the way that I feel personally. I don't take a lot of injury information as gospel as it is leaked to the media. I just wait and see. I'm just telling you based on what I think that Braelin Moore is, at least, if he doesn't play, going to be compromised. If he doesn't play, then you've got DJ Chester and Paul Mabenga in there on the interior. Those are the two guys that played against this Florida team last year and got their butts kicked. If you look at the Pro Football Focus grade, DJ Chester graded 49.5. Paul Mabenga graded 46.1 in that game in the Swamp. Now, those guys are 10 months older now. They're conceivably 10 months better, and I'm not suggesting that because they didn't play well in the Swamp last year, they couldn't play well in this game on Saturday. But Florida in this game last year had 11 tackles for loss and 6 sacks. They just wrecked everything LSU was trying to do. And Caleb Banks was a huge part of that, and Tyreak Sapp was an even bigger part of that. Now, Tyreak Sapp is Warren's nephew. He's 6'3". He's 275 pounds. Doesn't quite have the length the NFL scouts really, really like, but his production has been very good. He plays with a ton of motor. Last year he had 13 tackles for loss and 7 sacks. He got back there against LSU on multiple occasions, notched 4 tackles for loss, including a sack that day. He's on the edge, and he's a problem. As we know, this LSU offense cannot hum unless the offensive line holds its own. And I thought against Clemson, they held their own. Those that looked at the All-22 tape, those that grade for Pro Football Focus, those who watch the highlights, everyone that I've read or watched that kind of observed the Clemson game after the fact said, yeah, LSU's offensive line got pushed around, but they found some holes in the running game. They did enough to keep Nussmeier upright, only 1 sack, and that was good enough. And I thought the game plan that LSU went into was a good one. And they may have to tap back into it in this one because these two guys for Florida are a problem. And it may be a bigger problem for LSU if Braelin Moore is not available altogether. So the good news is, this is my opinion, but I think it's based in some reason. last year, it's very difficult for me to suggest that LSU, Joe Sloan, Brian Kelly, Garrett Nussmeier, we're going to go into that game in the swamp suggesting they may not be able to protect. Like, that just wasn't a reasonable thing to go into a game expecting for that offensive line last year. They had plenty of issues in pass protection. Absolutely. Sorry. They had plenty of issues in running the ball. They had almost no issues in pass protection. Got it right that time. Like, they protected the passer brilliantly all year, and they couldn't block Florida. So at that point, like, it's kind of tough once you realize late second quarter, mid third quarter, like, we can't block these guys in pass protection. It's kind of hard to pivot at that point, right? You've got a plan coming into the things you want to do and the guys you want to attack on the outside, the ways you want to get the ball to Aaron Anderson, to Kyron Lacey at that point. To like, you understand what you want to do and get Mason Taylor involved. And then all of a sudden, you kind of got to pivot on a dime and go, these guys are living in our backfield. I think it's easier to prepare that could be a case and have something a little bit more practiced and readied for the game on Saturday night. So to me, this is a massive, massive deal. This is very similar, in my opinion, to the opener against Clemson, and I don't think this is hyperbole, with one small exception, and I'll explain. If Florida doesn't win with its defensive line, I think Florida's in big trouble. Big trouble. Because I don't know where else they really get after LSU. Across the field. The one small caveat I would add to that, DJ Lagway has really thrown the deep ball well early in his career. Last year, he was really good at it. He's been terrible through 2 weeks. If they had some big plays with Lagway down the field, Eugene Wilson, those guys, sure, you can stay in it. And if there are turnovers, anybody can stay in any game, no matter what the stat sheet says, if one team turns the ball over. But if you just play it fairly standard and look at reasonable expectations for the guys that Florida's going to put on the field, for the guys that LSU is going to put on the field, Florida's best chance to win this game is to whip LSU at the point of attack, stop the run and shut it down completely, and get after Garrett Nussmeier just like they did last year when they sacked him 6 times. And 2 of the guys that you're most concerned about were chief among the issues last year. Now, Jack Pyburn was in that mix as well, stopping the run. He now plays for you, and he was on that front. So it's a little bit different, but those 2 guys are the biggest talents on that defensive front, and they're there. So if that's Florida's best path, but that said a different way, is if LSU's offensive line is prepared and plays a good game, I don't think Florida can beat LSU in Tiger Stadium. If Florida doesn't register a sack and LSU runs for 115 yards, LSU is going to be just fine. If LSU runs for 46 and Florida has 9 tackles for loss and Garrett Nussmeier gets sacked 4 times and hurried a couple more times that results in a turnover, there you go. There's your path. This is a talented Florida defense. They've got dudes on every level. You look at their returning starters preseason, you see both their safeties are back. Their top corner, Devin Moore, is back. They've got Sharif Denson at star, Grayson Howard at linebacker. Like, they've got a lot of guys back off of a pretty good defense from last year with a coordinator returning. And they played good on defense last week. They gave up 14 points. But their offense was bad, and their special teams cost them a safety, and they lost 16-14 in a 2-point game. This defense can put up a fight against LSU for sure. Tech put up a fight last week against LSU. But if they just put up a fight, I think LSU's fine. Florida's path here, to me, is the defensive front. You got to have Braelin Moore, DJ Chester. You got to have Josh Thompson, Paul Mabinga. You got to have your tackles, Tyree Adams, and Weston Davis play a really good game in this game. This will be Groundhog Day most weeks. But not every team is going to boast 2 potential first-rounders on the front 7, on the front 4. Clemson did. LSU's seen it. They blocked their LSU front all August long. And now they're going to see it again with Florida. I don't think, we're certainly not going to see it with Southeastern next week. I don't see that with Ole Miss right now. Bama's best defensive lineman is hurt. Like, this is front-loaded in terms of, like, elite NFL talent you're going to see. You're going to have to deal with this at South Carolina with Dylan Stewart. and we'll talk about it then. But this week, this is the first time I've really gotten into the matchups in this game. The lead of the show on this Thursday, Florida's defensive line, LSU's offensive line. That's the one to look at for sure. I've got a story up right now at LouisianaSports.net. The 3 matchups to watch, that's first on the list. We'll also, over the course of this day, talk about DJ Lagway versus Garrett Nussmeier, who aren't on the field at the same time, but it's a big matchup between those 2 quarterbacks. And Florida's got an All-American center, a really physical and tough running back. LSU's front seven is going to have to hold their own there. I've written about it and elaborated on it for free at LouisianaSports.net if you want to go check that out. But that's the first matchup here, Florida's defensive front and LSU's offensive line. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.